So I want you to take a second and just think about the photos that are currently sitting in your phone's camera roll.
Yeah, take a real look at them.
Actually, better yet, open up your phone and look at them right now. Are they, like, perfectly curated?
Beautifully lit.
Right, beautifully lit with every little blemish smoothed out, every angle calculated, and the background just utterly pristine.
Yeah.
Or are they a little blurry?
Kind of a little chaotic.
Exactly. Poorly lit, maybe capturing a moment where someone's eyes are half closed and, there's just random trash on the table behind you.
Which happens to all of us.
Right. Because if your photos look like that second category, like loud, unpolished, and a little bit broken, well, congratulations. You're actually standing at the absolute cutting edge of a massive cultural shift.
We really are watching an entire society actively unlearn, I'd say, a decade of digital habits.
Yeah.
And Monumental Movement Records just released this massive cultural column tracking this exact phenomenon.
It's a fascinating read.
It really is. They call it the aesthetics of imperfection. And it basically maps out the death of what we've all come to know as the clean aesthetic.
Which is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive.
Ah.
We are going to figure out why the entire pop culture landscape, from high fashion to underground club music and even, the way you manage your own social media, why it's suddenly rejecting perfection.
Rejecting it aggressively.
Aggressively, yes. And craving things that are messy, loud, and just delightfully unpolished.
So to really understand this rejection, we kind of have to look at the architecture of the trap we've been living in.
The digital trap.
Right. Because for years, our digital lives have been built on this overwhelming compulsion to always be correct.
Oh, totally.
Just think about the baseline functionality of a smartphone. It's literally a device designed to seamlessly eradicate error.
Yeah, before you even see it.
Exactly. Images are automatically smoothed by these hidden computational photography algorithms. Voices and pop music are pitch corrected to a strict mathematical grid.
Any failure or awkward moment is just, boom, hit with the backspace key, it's gone.
Poof, deleted.
We've basically spent the last 10 years trapped in the cultural equivalent of, like, millennial gray.
Oh, or corporate Memphis design.
Yes. That hyper-sterile, fictionless, over-sanitized aesthetic? It's kind of like walking into a laboratory clean room.
Where everything is wrapped in plastic.
Exactly. The lights are blindingly white, every surface is polyurethane, and you are terrified to touch a single thing because, well, you might leave a smudge.
Right. It's safe.
It's highly optimized for an algorithm, sure, but it is deeply, deeply uncomfortable for a human animal.
And it creates a massive psychological toll. When the baseline expectation is this frictionless existence, any rough edge feels like a personal failure.
Like you did something wrong just by existing.
Yeah. And looking in the background of this entire era is, of course, the creeping advancement of artificial intelligence.
Right, the elephant in the room.
Even before AI became the dominant force it is today, our algorithms were basically training us to behave more like machines, to output flawless, predictable content.
Which brings us to the breaking point. Because, you can only live in a sterile room for so long before someone decides to just throw a brick through the glass.
Someone had to do it.
And looking back at 2024, that brick was pretty clearly Charlie XCX's album Brat.
Oh, absolutely. It was the ultimate catalyst for breaking that pristine glass.
It really was.
What's crucial to understand about Brat isn't just that it had these catchy hooks. It was a masterclass in calculated sonic degradation.
Calculated being the key word there.
Right. The production purposefully weaponized unpolished sounds. You have these rough, blown-out vocals. There is literal noise, floor-like, the subtle electronic hiss of the equipment.
They just left it in.
They left it fully audible in the final mix, which is something a traditional pop producer would aggressively EQ out.
It's the musical equivalent of leaving the construction scaffolding visible on a finished building.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, the lyrics feel totally impulsive, almost like a chaotic voice note left at 3 a.m.
And that rawness just broke the spell of the clean aesthetic. It proved that audiences were starved for friction. But, she wasn't operating in a vacuum here.
No, not at all.
This auditory rebellion was actually catching up to a visual rebellion that was already looking backward for authenticity.
Right, looking back to the mid-2020s Y2K revival.
Exactly. And the return of indie sleaze.
Oh, man, just hearing the phrase indie sleaze conjures a very specific smell of, like, cheap hairspray and stale cigarettes.
Totally. It's an incredibly vivid visual language. We're talking about the aesthetics of the early 2000s party scene. Rooms lit entirely by the harsh, unforgiving flash of a cheap point-and-shoot digital camera.
Muses with ruined, smeared eyeliner.
Yeah, the ambiguous, highly pixelated romanticism of low-quality MySpace mirror selfies.
It's such a vibe.
And high-fashion brands actually saw this coming. Balenciaga, Saint Laurent, Heaven by Marc Jacobs, they all started pivoting away from sleek luxury to push this nighttime roughness.
They were staging shows that celebrated a worn-out shine.
Right. Finding high-fashion decadence in things that were decidedly, purposefully damaged.
Okay, wait, I need to stop us right here and really push back on this.
Sure.
Because when we talk about romanticizing pixelated photos and harsh, terrible digital camera flashes, I mean, aren't we just mistaking technological limitations for artistic genius?
How do you mean?
Like, isn't this just pure rose-colored nostalgia?
Yeah.
A 2-megapixel camera from 2005 didn't take blurry photos because it was making some profound statement about the human condition. It took blurry photos because the sensor was garbage.
No, it's a completely fair critique. It really is. If you look at the raw technology, it is objectively worse.
Right.
But the intent behind using it today is completely different. The movement isn't about romanticizing the outdated hardware itself.
Okay, then what is it about?
It's about the outright rejection of the perfect filter.
But like, if I buy an old digital camera off eBay and take a badly lit photo of my friends,
Yeah.
I'm still just mimicking an old aesthetic. How is that any more authentic than using a modern iPhone filter?
Well, let's compare two specific images. Think of a highly produced 2018 Instagram influencer post.
Okay.
The golden hour lighting is flawless, the skin is airbrushed, the background is a beautifully blurred, aspirational sunset.
Very clean.
Now compare that to a 2024 photo dump, a harsh flash in a dark room. The lighting is completely flat, someone is mid-sentence looking super awkward.
Right.
In a world where a generative AI program can instantly create that flawless 2018 sunset in 3 seconds, the perfect image has zero currency.
It doesn't mean anything anymore.
Exactly, it proves nothing.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going with this. Because the old harsh technology lacks neatness. Because it literally cannot be easily airbrushed, it functions as a proof of life.
Precisely. To a generation utterly exhausted by constant curation and deepfakes, that lack of a filter is an oasis of truth. The appeal isn't the low megapixel count. The appeal is the undeniable reality of the moment captured.
So people are basically weaponizing bad lighting to prove they have nothing to hide.
That's exactly it.
That's a signal that says, I'm not trying to manipulate you with an algorithm right now.
Yes. The flaws are the authentication protocol. And that same demand for raw, unfiltered reality trickled directly from those fashion mood boards straight into the gritty underground of the club scene.
Which gives us Keisha's massive 2024 comeback track, Joyride.
Yes, a perfect bridge here.
It really is. Because it revived that 2000s Eurodance sound, but the production intentionally made it sound cheap and, kind of trashy.
Intentionally trashy.
Yeah, it's this glittering synthetic soundscape, but it feels coated in sweat. It operates as this carnival-like rebellion against overmanaged polite beauty.
And that embrace of trashy Eurodance isn't just a pop star playing dress-up, though.
No.
It's a slightly sanitized reflection of a very real, very radical movement happening in the underground clubs of Berlin and London right now.
They're calling it a lo-fi renaissance, right?
They are. In these spaces, DJs and producers are actively abandoning state-of-the-art studio gear. They are digging through pawn shops for cheap microphones and broken synthesizers.
Because the goal isn't high fidelity anymore.
Not at all. The new rule is to deliberately miss the beat, to overdrive the mixer until the audio distorts, to literally break the sound.
To actively try to break the sound. That is such a wild paradigm shift if you have any background in music production.
Oh, completely.
Because the entire goal the last 40 years has been the pursuit of pristine fidelity.
Right.
So how exactly are they breaking it? Like, what is the mechanism that makes it sound better by making it technically worse?
Well, it really comes down to escaping the grid.
The grid.
Yeah. In modern digital audio, there is a function called quantization.
Okay.
When a producer records a drum beat, the software automatically snaps every single drum hit to a perfectly mathematically spaced digital grid.
It ensures the timing is flawless.
Exactly. 100% accurate every single time.
But the human brain can detect that mathematical perfection, right? It registers as a sort of sonic uncanny valley.
That's a great way to describe it.
It's like looking at a CGI human face in a movie. Like, it might look perfect, but your primitive brain knows something is deeply, subtly wrong.
That is the exact phenomenon. Perfectly quantized music feels sterile because biological life does not operate on a flawless grid.
Right. We aren't metronomes.
Exactly. A human drummer speeds up slightly when the chorus hits because of adrenaline. They drag a fraction of a second behind the beat during a sad verse.
Yeah.
So when these lo-fi producers deliberately turn off the quantization when they play off the grid, or let an old analog tape machine naturally warp the pitch, they are mimicking human physiology.
The music starts to breathe.
Yes, it has a heartbeat again.
So imperfection becomes the literal mechanism for sincerity. Like the micro errors are how the music actually communicates emotion.
And this philosophical shift extends way beyond the club. The column points out that this signals a massive lifestyle reset.
For everyone, really.
Yeah. The era of looking good, of optimizing your life for the algorithmic gaze of TikTok or Instagram, is coming to an end. The dominant desire now is to, as the writers put it, fluctuate.
To fluctuate, that is such a powerful way to frame it.
It really is.
To just allow yourself to be an uneven biological organism rather than a static digital brand.
People are migrating away from their hyper-managed online avatars. They're retreating back into their physical bodies.
Unfocused photos, rambling and noisy voice notes.
Unedited video clips where people stumble over their words, like these aren't seen as bloopers anymore.
Right.
They are the new baseline for interpersonal communication.
It's why people are craving the physical humidity of a packed basement venue. Like you want to feel the physical roar of a live sound system rattling your ribs.
The screen can't replicate the physical displacement of air.
Exactly. We are basically witnessing the rewilding of culture. Pop music, fashion, social behavior, it's all returning to the wild.
Artists are ditching those multi-million-dollar recording studios to record improvised takes in their bedrooms.
And just uploading them the same day.
Prioritizing pure kinetic impulse over polished execution.
But let's connect this back to what you mentioned earlier about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Because that feels like the real ghost in the machine here.
Oh, absolutely.
For 10 years, living under that minimalist, optimized doctrine, the Marie Kondo tidying up of our digital lives,
Yeah.
we feared what was missing.
Right.
If our feeds weren't perfectly smooth, if our lives weren't neatly categorized, we felt profound anxiety. So why the sudden urgency to throw the doors open and just embrace the mess?
Because the goalposts moved. For years, perfection was a status symbol because it was difficult to achieve.
It took effort.
It required money, time, professional curation. But now generative AI has made perfection completely frictionless.
And infinitely scalable.
Yes. When a machine can instantly generate a flawlessly structured essay, a mathematically perfect pop song, or a blemish-free photograph of an event that never even happened,
Right.
perfection loses all of its cultural value. It becomes cheap.
It becomes incredibly boring.
Boring, exactly.
So when the machines master perfection, humans have to master imperfection just to prove they are still here.
Exactly. The noise, the visual blur, the stuttering audio, these are no longer seen as mistakes to be scrubbed away.
They are accepted as essential creative margins.
They are the only spaces left where actual, unsimulated human expression can survive.
So to ground this in something you can actually go listen to right now, the MMR column ends with an appendix.
Yes, a 2025 playlist of artists.
Artists who are using these creative margins in brilliant ways. Because we talked about the Club Rebellion with Brat and Joyride, but this aesthetic is also being used to convey incredibly complex, heavy emotions.
A prime example from their playlist is Yaji, specifically looking at her 2023 post-club masterpiece, With a Hammer.
Which is such an evocative title for a movement about breaking pristine surfaces.
It really is perfect. The column analyzes how Yaji uses the raw, unpolished nature of her beats to process genuine anger. Yeah, she bounces fluidly between Korean and English, often distorting her vocals to the point where the literal language matters less than the texture of the sound.
So the medium is the message.
Right. By intentional clipping the audio and adding abrasive textures, she translates deep introspection and rage directly into a physical frequency.
She doesn't try to make the anger pretty.
Or palatable for a mainstream playlist? No. The ugliness of the distortion is the emotion.
And then there's another artist they highlight who takes this lo-fi philosophy in a completely different, incredibly cinematic direction. Ethel Cain.
Oh, yeah. Ethel Cain's 2022 album, Preacher's Daughter, is the pinnacle of what the essay calls a collapsing Americana aesthetic.
That record feels like walking through a ghost town that's just slowly being reclaimed by weeds.
Sonically, it achieves that feeling through massive, cavernous reverb and tape decay.
Her voice often sounds like it's echoing through an abandoned church.
Yes. The guitars drone and waver out of tune, mimicking the sound of an old cassette tape that's been left out in the sun.
It's so atmospheric.
And she uses that decaying, deeply imperfect audio landscape to explore themes of generational trauma and self-salvation. It proves that this aesthetics of imperfection isn't just some trendy party trick.
Right.
The degradation of the audio is a powerful storytelling tool.
So bringing all of this together, what is the core takeaway for you, the listener, from this deep dive? It really boils down to this profound realization.
That we are finally breaking free.
Breaking free from the curse of perfection, yeah. For so long, we've been conditioned to believe that an error, a distortion, or an ambiguity in our lives meant we were failing at the digital game.
Failing the algorithm.
Right. But stepping outside that algorithm, refusing to snap to the grid, isn't a regression of our culture. It is an evolution. The aesthetics of imperfection isn't just a fleeting fashion trend or a musical subgenre. It is ultimately the aesthetics of living.
I think the most important thing to take away from this cultural shift is a renewed sense of permission.
Permission to just be human.
Yes, it is okay to break. It is okay to fluctuate. The next time you take a chaotic, poorly lit photo with your friends,
Or you stumble over your words in a voice note.
or you record a video where the wind is completely ruining the microphone,
Don't hit delete.
don't do it. Don't let the algorithm convince you to scrub away the evidence of your reality.
Yeah.
You aren't making a mistake. You are just claiming your creative margins.
You're helping the world sound and look human again.
Exactly.
But of course, exploring all of this leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling thought.
There's always a catch.
A question to mull over long after this deep dive is done. We just unpacked how humans are weaponizing messiness and utilizing flaws to rebel against the sterile, flawless output of artificial intelligence.
Right.
But what happens when the machines figure that out?
That's the scary part.
If AI systems eventually learn to perfectly replicate this lo-fi aesthetic, like if algorithms start automatically calculating the exact right amount of artificial tape hiss?
Generating synthetic voice cracks.
Exactly. Rendering perfectly mapped bad lighting into their images. Will we eventually need a brand new way to prove we are human?
It's a real possibility.
Or will the line between a beautifully human flaw and a coldly programmed flaw just disappear entirely?
We might not be able to tell the difference.
Just something to think about the next time you look at that wonderfully messy, blurry photo sitting in your camera roll.